Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your host, Joe Kuzma, but you already knew that, right? Today, once again, we're going to be talking about how Steelers Nation has no boundaries. Truly a worldwide phenomena, and none can be proven any more true than a photo opportunity available to all of Steelers Nation this upcoming weekend. I have a very special guest, a very interesting Steelers fan. He works with some different groups, has a very important event coming up this Sunday, September the 4th. It is a photo opportunity for all Steelers fans across the world. We're going to talk about this event and how it got started, but first I would like to introduce the person responsible, Guillermo Vargas. Guillermo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you very much. How are you doing yourself?
Like I tell everyone that listens, I would complain, but no one's going to care. So, I finally got over.
I think that I heard that before.
I finally kicked the cold, or so I said the last episode or so that I was recording, and now it feels like it's almost back. It's like I feel like I got like a softball down in my lungs, so I'm gasping for air here. So hopefully you can't hear that on your end. But tell us a little bit about this. Is a Steelers fan group photo that will be taking place in 26 cities in Mexico, 13 in the United States, and there are also cities in Canada, Colombia, Germany, and all across the world. Tell us a little bit about this event.
Well, it's an event that started actually with a group out of Monterrey, Mexico, in 2002. They were getting together to watch a game between the Steelers and playing Tampa Bay. And they decided to do that every single game of the Steelers. And then it took them 9 years to get together to take a picture. And then they decided to do it every year. That was in 2011. In 2013, Sergio Carrasco, who runs a group in Mexico City by the name of Steelers Family Mexico, he was fascinated by the fact that they were getting together to take this picture, and he decided to launch an invitation across Mexico to do it national. And on 2013, they had, I believe that there were only 3 cities, Monterrey, Guadalajara, and Mexico City. But then in 2014, the event grew, and they had 13 cities throughout Mexico participating. That's the first time that I did it, but they didn't pay attention to me doing it here in Washington, D.C. But then in 2014, it grew a little bigger, and that's when some media started paying attention. We had ESPN, Fox, and even Pittsburgh Gazette paying attention to what we were doing. And it's funny, you mentioned before that I am responsible, but in reality, this is due because of the people in Monterrey. And then Sergio Carrasco went ahead and did it nationally. And last year, after the event, I told Sergio, you know what? This is so great. I am so into it that I wish that we could do it around the world. Show people that the best fans in the NFL is us, the people, Steelers fans. So I proposed to Sergio that we were going to go around the globe looking for groups that would like to participate. And this is what we are doing. We are counting now with 42 places around the earth. There is Germany, Colombia, like you mentioned before, group in Canada, and the people in Mexico and the U.S.
Yeah, and I could only hope that actually bringing you onto the show, Guillermo, and speaking about this event that's going to happen on September the 4th. Now, this is 10:30 a.m. This is local time wherever you are, and I'm going to post some of the graphics, some of the posters that the group had made. Of course, the official group that's on Facebook, if you want to find it, is Foto Oficial Steelers Fans. It is in Spanish, so you can translate it. There's machine translation and stuff like that. But for the most part, you will see, if you're in the Pittsburgh area, this is going to happen at Point State Park at the Fountain at 10:30 in the morning on Sunday, just this upcoming weekend. And this is free to any and all Steelers fans if you would like to join in. And it has caught, as you had said, Guillermo, and I was fascinated when we were talking about this, and I had sent this out through the Steel City Underground Facebook and Twitter and whatnot throughout the week. I was just fascinated with how many different areas are involved in this particular photo. So any Steelers fans that want to get in on this, if you happen to be listening to this and you're not in the Pittsburgh area, there's many other places across the United States. And of course, this having started in Mexico has the biggest and largest presence in Mexico, but this has caught the attention even of the Pittsburgh Steelers and their own PR department with Bert Lawton. He will be receiving these photos, and I saw what happened last year. It just continues to get bigger and bigger and shows just how truly big Steelers Nation is, how worldwide Steelers Nation is. So just kind of backtracking here just a little bit, because a lot of people are probably like, whoa, Mexico and Monterrey, and how did you kind of mentioned how this all began. You had a group that was watching Steelers games down there in Mexico, and most people probably don't realize just how many Pittsburgh Steelers fans there are in Mexico, or even how big American football is in Mexico. We were speaking a little bit off the air beforehand, and I was very fascinated by your own personal story growing up. You said you weren't into soccer whatsoever, but it was nothing for you to play American football in the streets. I had to cut you off a little bit because I wanted to hear all of this and make sure all of our listeners heard it too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about growing up in Mexico and being a fan of America, as you would call it, American football, because of course, depending on where you are worldwide, soccer is known as soccer in the United States and in Canada, but over in England, it's football, and some of your Latin American countries,
Yes.
It's football. So it's not the same football that we call it here, just to avoid any confusion. Tell us what it was like to play the American version, the real version of the sport, for as most of us would call it.
Well, like I said before, I was born and raised in Mexico City, and I never enjoyed soccer. It was not my cup of tea. I got involved into American football since I was a kid, and I was not playing for any team, but we were playing on the streets. We were playing touch football, and sometimes touch football developed into tackle football, playing on the street. So it was a little rough, but it was the thing that I loved. And then my brother started taking me to the games in Mexico City, and we were following the National University of Mexico in the 1970s. Their uniform was black and gold, and it was the time when Terry Bradshaw was the quarterback. And I just fell naturally into the Steelers. I moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota 37 years ago, and people questioning me why I didn't like the Vikings. And I said, no, I've been a Steelers forever, and I will be a Steelers forever. So then I moved to D.C. area 5 years ago, and again, I'm going for the Steelers all the way. So now I say that I was born in Mexico City. I grew up in Minneapolis. I am in Washington, D.C., but my heart is in Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's absolutely tremendous. And believe it or not, a lot of the people that I come across, I think that's just such a great story, how you've moved all over and have always been a Steelers fan. Some people say, oh, you can't be a fan of that team unless you live in that area. And as I've had many other guests on the show, I've had Simon Chester that's over in the UK talking about how there's a big fan base over in Great Britain. I've also spoken with Jeff Hartman, who just kind of like me, you got this little fringe area that surrounds Pittsburgh by about an hour and a half, and it cuts across Ohio and maybe a piece of New York, Maryland, West Virginia. And you just take your finger and make a big circle around Pittsburgh, and you have this large Steelers country that's right there. But it truly is global. I think it's fascinating to hear that, most people would say, well, if you're playing, even if you're playing soccer, but if you're playing basketball, you could play basketball in Mexico City. But I think a lot of Americans don't realize just how popular football is there, because you're saying you're playing any touch or tackle football. You have to have teams. So you're obviously not the only person who has an interest in American football. What's that like growing up in Mexico City with football? And are there a lot of Steelers fans in Mexico City, or are there just a lot of, or maybe are there Dallas Cowboys fans, or, because they say they're America's team, but we don't think that as Steelers fans, obviously. If any other NFL teams are as popular as the Pittsburgh Steelers, or if the Pittsburgh Steelers are the most popular NFL team in Mexico?
When I was a teenager, the Cowboys were kind of imposed into the population, and most kids were rooting for the Cowboys. But then, with the Steelers being so great in the 70s, I think that's when people start paying attention to more teams. And the way it is in Mexico, there is many leagues, including little kids up to college. And I think that they are talking about a professional league nowadays. I think that they have 4 teams in that league. So American football is very, very into Mexican people.
Yeah, that's very, very awesome to hear. I mean, it's just not something that I think the rest of us really think about. I mean, you see all the games that are going on over in London, and, they're sending maybe 3 or 4 games there per year, but really the international presence of the NFL now, they have their eyes on Mexico City. I think it was maybe it was a preseason game, or was it a regular season game? They had the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers a few years ago down in Mexico City.
Yes.
And now we even see the Pittsburgh Steelers officially had a big party down there earlier this year, and it just wasn't like any run-of-the-mill type of thing. They actually had Jerome Bettis and a few other big-name players down there that they sent down for all of the Mexican Steelers fans. I mean, it's truly amazing to see the reach of the NFL and seeing some of these other groups. I just wish myself that I had a little bit more of a handle on it. With myself, I'm not a Spanish language speaking person. I could get by just a little bit, but it would just be great to reach out to folks like yourself and hear these stories about how the NFL is worldwide, how Steelers Nation has no boundaries whatsoever, and it just truly does reach everywhere, and that's a lot about what this event is about. This is open and available to anyone who would like to participate in this picture, and this picture will get picked up by national media. Probably, I won't put any timeline to it because, it's maybe not the most important thing to them, but they definitely do pay attention. So for anyone that's interested in doing this, Guillermo, what is your advice? Do you just kind of show up at this location? Is there a point person that you should contact? Explain the process a little bit about you want to do this on September 4th. Do you just show up a little bit before 10:30 and everyone's organized in the photo? Is that kind of how it works, or?
Yeah, before everything is out there on the media, on social media, we try to hook up with whoever wants to be a coordinator on every city, and that coordinator is the person to be contacted. And on every city, there is a banner that Sergio Carrasco in Mexico City creates for this coordinator, and then he or she is responsible for posting the the banner on Facebook, and everyone is invited to attend, like you said. Have fun, show your passion, show your love, and the support for our team. That's the intention of all of this event. And we try to do it on the same day, at the same time, just to show that we can work in unity and, together.
And the timing is perfect. It's just a little over, because of the Monday night game, it's 1 week before the official NFL kickoff, 8 days before the Steelers play on Monday Night Football in your new hometown now of Washington, D.C. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. You probably get a little bit of heckling from Redskins fans. I'm sure there's been some trash talk that's been going back and forth. So, and in fact, Washington, D.C. is one of several of the U.S. cities that are on this list. Just to run through this real quick, because I know, being that there are Steelers fans everywhere, in fact, this is how we connected. There are people that are either displaced formerly from Pittsburgh, people that are in Pittsburgh, or people that have actually never even been to Pittsburgh that are listening to this show. So Washington, D.C., actually, you guys will be on the east end of the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial, which has got to be an incredible picture. I was just in D.C. last year myself, took my then 2-year-old daughter up the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and struggled to get a picture in front of the Abe Lincoln statue, but we did. And so I could just imagine if you're holding a terrible towel in front of there. Of course, in Pittsburgh, Point State Park at the fountain, a very scenic area. If you're in Southern California and Los Angeles, there's an area for you there too, as well as Nevada, Memphis, Tennessee, Phoenix, Arizona, Houston, Texas, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, your old stomping grounds in Minnesota, actually in Minneapolis, San Bernardino, California, El Paso, Chicago. So, Guillermo, just to let all of the Steelers fans out there know that may show up for this photo opportunity, they're not just going to show up and see 5 people standing in front of, let's say, the Lincoln Memorial or Point State Park. In fact, you're expecting a huge turnout at several of your locations. Tell us a little bit more about just the popularity of this event.
Well, every city is a little different. Last year, I had only 13 people in my group. I hope I get more this year. But yes, there are places like Chihuahua, Mexico, where they are expecting 1,300 people on Sunday for this picture. And then from there, the largest groups are in Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey, Torreon in Mexico. But let me tell you, our Steelers brothers in California, they are wild. And I'm thinking that they are going to come up with a very, very large group or groups, because there are different cities in California. I was able to attend the game against the Chargers last year, and these people are awesome. They are incredible. They show their passion like I haven't seen it before. So I think that California is going to come up great. And then on the other hand, there are places like Cancun, Mexico, where last year our sister Edith Ayala couldn't find anybody to join her, but she said, heck, I'll do it myself. And that's what she did. She took a picture of herself. Well, actually, her daughter took the picture, sent it to Sergio, and Sergio included the picture in the final work, and everything was sent to Pittsburgh. So there could be groups with as many as 1,000 people, or they could be just a single person. And one of the hesitations that we face when we try to invite people is that they fear that may not have enough people. But we say, well, it's just the participation. Let's go and have fun about it. Let's show the support for our team. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, that sounds great. And that's a great story about the person who decided to do it on their own. Also a great story about the San Diego Chargers game, because I remember watching it on TV, and they always say this on TV, and I think people roll their eyes, but they truly don't realize that most of the away games for the Steelers are home games. And in San Diego, even Phillip Rivers, the quarterback for the Chargers, was complaining that he had to use a silent snap count, which you shouldn't have to use in your own home stadium in order to snap the football. It's because there were so many Steelers fans there. You could see the terrible towels in the stadium. And Guillermo, I was there for
everywhere.
Yeah, I was there for week 17. I have some videos up on the Steel City Underground YouTube channel that I shot with my phone myself, because people I don't think would believe Cleveland is yet another home game. It's not a very far trip for Steelers fans to make. A lot of Steelers fans that are transplanted in Ohio, such as myself, it's a very short trip to make. And sometimes it's easier. It's definitely easier to get tickets in Cleveland because the Cleveland fans don't really show, especially at the end of the year, don't show up for those games because they're pretty much out of it. And they also know that they could sell the tickets and make a few dollars extra, and their whole season isn't a complete wash. And I know that's very sad to say about their fans, but when you're there week 17 and there's just that much noise that you could actually see some of the Steelers players turn around once we saw the score for the Jets and Bills game, it was just a really tremendous experience. And all the players that were running off the field into the away tunnel there, they had us all gathered. We were all in that one corner waving the terrible towels. I'm sure it was a lot like you were saying with the San Diego Chargers. I know talking with SG Banger on an episode last week, you had the big party that was there in California as well. Those guys definitely know how to party. They had the party animal Jeff Reed with them. Yeah. They know how to get it done.
My wife and I had the opportunity to go to that game. We flew out of Baltimore, and we have a heck of a time starting right there in Baltimore, wearing our Steelers gear. And then when we landed in LA, we joined our friends there, and we jumped into two buses loaded with Steelers fans. And then we rode to San Diego. And let me tell you, it was a great, great, great weekend with those people.
Is it too late if somebody's listening and they want to organize and get a group photo together? Is it too late for them to contact you and get one of these banners set up here? I know it's a little bit of a short window, and we hooked up a little bit real close to this event, but could they still get involved if they're one of these cities that aren't listed here?
Well, if they want to do it, we have today and tomorrow to create a banner. Well, technically just tomorrow, because we close doors on Monday night, trying to get more people coming on board. So, yeah, absolutely. If there is somebody that is interested in running a group, by all means, they can contact me or contact Sergio Carrasco and on Facebook, send an inbox message, and we will be more than happy to create a banner for them.
Okay, that's and that will help anybody else out, because I know there's a few areas and you've got pretty much all corners of the U.S. covered, but I don't know if anybody wants to go up into the New England states, but you just never know. You just never know up in that area. And then, of course, Cleveland, we could just forget about.
That would be great.
If you get up in New England, maybe you could you could take some photos, like maybe right in front of Gillette Stadium would be even better. But, hey, you just never know. But, Guillermo, it was definitely fun having you on. This event looks like a blast. I truly wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to see the final result and all of the pictures of all of Steelers Nation worldwide when this is all said and done.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, once that all the pictures are taken, they are sent to Sergio in Mexico City, and he puts them together and sends the final work to the offices in Pittsburgh.
And if anyone is looking for this information, I will be sure to add it to the official podcast page for this particular episode over at steelcityunderground.com. Just feel free to go over to the website, search for it. I do have the posts with these different locations circulating throughout my social media. They'll probably post again at least once, if not twice, before the event. But as with anything on social media, it ends up getting shoved down the pile or whatever. Much easier to go to steelcityunderground.com. Just look for this podcast under the link podcasts and search for this episode. Once again, thank you, Guillermo, for joining me today.
Thank you, Joe. It has been a pleasure.
If you're listening in and you're interested, please head on over to steelcityunderground.com for all of the various information about the official Steelers Nation photo that is taking place worldwide. Absolutely no cost to you. And in fact, if you are frequenting any of the activities in downtown Pittsburgh this weekend, you may just want to take a little bit of time out of your schedule around 10:30 in the morning on Sunday to head on over to Point Park and take this photo and be part of a historic 2016 edition of this worldwide Steelers Nation photo. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, it's always been fun. I also want to once again thank my guest, Guillermo Vargas, for joining me, taking time out of his schedule. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be safe, be good, and I will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.